You won't believe there is a product so dominant that it creates profit without ever producing something you can hold in your hands. This product's so invisible that most people don't even realize they're buying it every single day. You don't see it on shelves, you don't unwrap it, and yet it quietly follows you through your entire life. That product is the debt itself. Debt is often presented as a simple financial tool, something neutral, practical, even helpful. But in reality, it has been carefully engineered into the most profitable product in human history. It has paid for wars, brought down empires, locked entire nations into dependence, and slowly siphoned wealth away from ordinary people. And what's strange is how little we talk about where debt actually comes from. Ask most people who created it, who benefits most from it, or why it dominates our financial system, and you'll usually get silence. That's because the history of debt isn't just an economic story. It's the story of money, control, and power. At its simplest level, debt is a promise. You take something today and agree to give something back tomorrow. That sounds fair, but hidden inside that promise is the true source of power: interest. Interest turns the future into income. It allows someone to profit not from work or production, but from time itself. Ancient societies understood how dangerous this could be. In Mesopotamia, debts were written on clay tablets, but rulers also erased them regularly through debt jubilees. They knew that when too many people were trapped by obligations, social order collapsed. The Hebrew Bible even commanded debt forgiveness every 50 years. The idea was clear: debt could not be allowed to grow forever without destroying society. But as history moved forward, this wisdom faded. Instead of wiping debt away, elites learned how to control it. In medieval Europe, the Catholic Church officially banned usury, the charging of excessive interest. But bankers and merchants didn't stop lending. They simply got smarter. Loans were disguised as trade deals. Interest was hidden inside exchange rates and contracts. By the time of the Renaissance, powerful banking families like the Medici weren't building influence through land or armies, but through credit. They financed kings, popes, and wars. In return, they gained political leverage. Debt stopped being just money. It became a tool of power. The real turning point came in the 17th century with the birth of state debt. When the Dutch Republic fought for independence from Spain, it funded the war by selling bonds to its own citizens. People could buy government debt, earn interest, and trade those bonds like property. For the first time, war was no longer limited by what a ruler physically owned. It could be financed by selling the future. England quickly adopted this model, and in 1694 the creation of the Bank of England made national debt permanent. Governments no longer borrowed only in emergencies. They lived on debt, rolling it over endlessly, and the bankers managing that debt became essential to the state itself. This changed everything. Lending to governments became the safest investment available, because states could always raise taxes. Wars that once would have bankrupted kings could now continue indefinitely. Empires expanded, colonies were conquered, and markets were opened, all funded by borrowed money. The more nations fought, the more they borrowed. The more they borrowed, the richer their creditors became. By the 18th and 19th centuries, bond markets in cities like London and Paris had become the beating heart of global finance. As industrial capitalism spread, debt moved beyond governments and into everyday life. Railroads, factories, and infrastructure were built with borrowed money. Workers earned wages from debt-funded companies and then borrowed themselves to buy homes, tools, and basic goods. Over time, debt seeped into every layer of society. By the 20th century, it wasn't just something used by governments and tycoons. It had become a mass product sold to ordinary people. Mortgages, car loans, credit cards, and student loans reshaped daily life. Borrowing was no longer something you did in desperation. It was framed as responsibility, ambition, even success. Owning a home became a dream, but only if you agreed to decades of payments. Credit cards promised freedom and convenience, while quietly locking people into cycles of interest. Buy now, pay later became a way of life. Debt was no longer shameful. It was normal. And this is where the system reveals its true brilliance and its cruelty. Debt doesn't generate profit just once. It generates profit continuously. Every interest payment moves money from the borrower to the lender, month after month, year after year. A house bought with a 30-year mortgage often costs double or triple its original price. A small credit card balance can grow faster than someone's ability to pay it down. What begins as a promise slowly turns into a trap. Unlike physical products, debt doesn't require factories, workers, or raw materials. It creates wealth from time itself. The people who understood this early, the bankers of Amsterdam, London, and later Wall Street, designed an entire financial system around it. This system doesn't simply manage debt. It produces it, expands it, and depends on it to survive. After the Second World War, debt became global. Institutions like the IMF and World Bank were created to lend money to countries in crisis or development. On the surface, the goal was stability and growth. In reality, loans came with conditions. Governments were told what to cut, what to privatize, and how to run their economies. Debt became a form of discipline. Nations that borrowed too much found their sovereignty quietly eroded. At the same time, banks discovered that households were even more profitable than governments. The modern mortgage became the centerpiece of middle-class life. Millions could own homes, but only by tying themselves to decades of payments. Consumer loans and credit cards transformed debt into a lifestyle. For banks, it meant steady, compounding profits. For governments, it meant consumer spending could grow even when wages didn't. For corporations, it meant customers who could spend money they didn't yet have. The system became addicted to growth. Banks preferred debts that lasted longer. Governments preferred borrowing to taxing. Central banks kept everything running by creating more money and more credit. Debt was no longer a bridge to the future. It became the foundation of the present. When the cracks appeared in developing countries in the 1980s and globally in 2008, the response was always the same: more debt. Banks were rescued. Ordinary people paid the price, and instead of shrinking, the system grew larger than ever. Today, global debt exceeds $300 trillion. Never in history have so many owed so much to so few, and we're told this is progress. Debt is now so normal that it barely raises questions. Young people begin adult life buried in student loans. Families commit to 30-year mortgages. Governments run endless deficits. Inflation quietly makes repayment possible by reducing the value of money itself. Debt concentrates wealth. Interest flows upward, from millions of borrowers to a small group of creditors. Those who already have assets can borrow cheaply and grow richer. Those who don't borrow at high cost and stay trapped. Inequality isn't a flaw in the system, it's a feature. And now, with digital currencies and programmable money, debt is entering its next phase. Faster approvals, automated penalties, total visibility. It's efficient, but history shows us that efficiency for creditors usually means less freedom for everyone else. So the lesson is simple, even if the system is not. Debt is not neutral. It is not inevitable. It was designed to work this way. It turns future effort into present profit. And real financial freedom rarely comes from deeper participation in a system built on borrowing. From ancient clay tablets to modern credit scores, the pattern hasn't changed. Debt enriches the lender, burdens the borrower, and shapes the world in favor of those who control money. And the final trick? We're taught to celebrate it, to call it growth, to confuse borrowing with prosperity. If this changed your perspective, don't forget to subscribe. History always leaves clues. You just have to learn where you have to look.